Don't ignore this psalm. If you're listening right now, this is not random. This moment, this pause, this quiet pull that made you stay. This psalm is for the moment you feel lost. Not lost in a dramatic way. Not lost because everything collapsed at once, but lost in a slow, quiet way. When nothing feels clear anymore, when decisions feel heavy, when direction feels distant, when you're tired of trying to understand why you feel the way you feel. Some people are lost in chaos. Others are lost in silence. This psalm speaks to both. Take a breath. Let your shoulders drop. You don't need to fix anything right now. You don't need answers yet. Just listen. There are moments in life when fear doesn't shout. It whispers. It shows up when you wake up tired even after sleeping, when motivation disappears, when prayer feels harder than usual, when you ask God for direction and all you hear is your own thoughts echoing back. This is not weakness. This is human. Psalm 143 was written from this exact place, not from victory, not from clarity, but from confusion, from someone who had faith and still felt lost. Before we read this psalm, understand something important. You don't need to feel strong to pray this. You don't need the right words. You don't need confidence. You only need honesty, because this psalm is not about pretending to be okay. It's about admitting you're not, and that's where God meets you. This psalm is for the moment you feel lost. Lost in decisions, lost in direction, lost in purpose, lost in your own thoughts. If that's you, stay with me. Slowly, calmly. Hear my prayer, O Lord. Listen to my cry for mercy. In your faithfulness and righteousness, come to my relief. This begins with urgency, not elegance, not long explanations, just a cry. Hear me? When someone asks to be heard, it usually means they feel unseen, overlooked, forgotten. Sometimes the hardest part of being lost is feeling like no one notices. But here, the psalmist doesn't argue. He doesn't explain himself. He simply asks God to listen. And that alone is a form of faith. Do not bring your servant into judgment, for no one living is righteous before you. This is humility, not shame, humility. It's the realization that confusion doesn't make you guilty. Struggle doesn't make you a failure. It makes you human. This psalm reminds us that God doesn't expect perfection from someone who is lost. He expects honesty. The enemy pursues me. He crushes me to the ground. He makes me dwell in the darkness like those long dead. Notice something important. The enemy here isn't always a person. Sometimes it's pressure. Sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's anxiety. Sometimes it's the voice that tells you you're behind, late, or failing. Being lost often feels like darkness. Not total darkness, but enough to make everything blurry. Enough to make you question yourself. So my spirit grows faint within me. My heart within me is dismayed. This is emotional exhaustion, not physical tiredness. Soul tiredness. The kind that makes you wonder how long you can keep going like this. If you've ever said, I don't know what's wrong with me, I'm just tired. This psalm understands you. I remember the days of long ago. I meditate on all your works and consider what your hands have done. When you're lost, memory becomes a lifeline. You remember moments when God helped you before, times when things made sense, moments of peace you can't quite feel right now. This isn't living in the past. It's anchoring yourself. Sometimes the only way forward is remembering that God has already carried you before. I spread out my hands to you. My soul thirsts for you like a parched land. This is not a request for answers. It's a request for presence. When you feel lost, you don't always need direction first. You need reassurance. You need to know you're not alone in the confusion. Answer me quickly, Lord. My spirit fails. Do not hide your face from me, or I will be like those who go down to the pit. This is urgency again, not desperation, honesty. There are moments when silence feels heavier than pain. This psalm gives language to that feeling. Let the morning bring me word of your unfailing love, for I have put my trust in you. Morning represents clarity, not instant solutions, but light. This verse is a quiet request. Please, remind me that you're still here. Show me the way I should go, for to you I entrust my life. This is the heart of Psalm 143. Direction, not speed, not success, not outcomes, just a way. This is why this psalm is for the moment you feel lost, because it doesn't demand a map. It asks for a step. There is a specific kind of pain that comes from not knowing what to do next, not knowing which decision is right, not knowing whether to wait or act, not knowing if staying is faith or fear, not knowing if leaving is courage or running away. This is where most people feel lost, not because they don't care, but because they care deeply. Psalm 143 does not rush this moment. It doesn't shame confusion. It doesn't demand certainty. Instead, it slows everything down. And slowing down is often the first step toward clarity. When the psalm says, "Show me the way I should go," it acknowledges something important. Even faithful people don't always know the way. Even prayerful people feel unsure. Even strong believers feel disoriented. Being lost is not the opposite of faith. Sometimes it's the doorway to deeper trust. Modern life trains us to hide confusion. We're taught to appear confident, to have plans, to move fast, to always know what comes next. But the soul doesn't work that way. The soul needs space, silence, permission to admit, "I don't know." This psalm gives you that permission. If you're feeling lost right now, ask yourself gently, are you exhausted from trying to control outcomes? Are you overwhelmed by too many options? Are you afraid of choosing wrong? Are you tired of waiting for clarity? Psalm 143 meets you in that exact place. Deliver me from my enemies, O Lord, for I hide myself in you. Notice the language. I hide myself. Not I fix myself. Not I explain myself. Not I defend myself. I hide. Sometimes safety comes before answers. Sometimes protection comes before direction. When you feel lost, your first need is not clarity. It's refuge. Teach me to do your will, for you are my God. May your good spirit lead me on level ground. This is surrender without panic, not dramatic, not emotional manipulation, just trust. The request is not for a perfect path, but for level ground, stable ground, ground where you can breathe again. If your life feels uneven right now, this line is for you. For your name's sake, Lord, preserve my life. In your righteousness, bring me out of trouble. This isn't about escape. It's about endurance. Sometimes God doesn't remove confusion immediately. Sometimes He strengthens you inside it. This psalm acknowledges both possibilities. Now pause for a moment. Let this sink in. You don't have to rush the process. You don't have to force clarity. You don't have to compare your journey to anyone else's. This psalm is for the moment you feel lost, not the moment you feel resolved. Here is a practical truth Psalm 143 teaches us. When you feel lost, clarity comes in layers. Direction often follows surrender. Peace arrives before answers. This is why repeating this psalm matters. Repetition doesn't mean weakness. It means grounding. Each time you return to it, your mind slows, your breathing steadies, your fear softens. That's how spiritual clarity begins. If this psalm is speaking to you right now, don't rush away from it. Stay with it. Let it sit in your thoughts today. Let it echo quietly when anxiety rises. And if you feel comfortable, leave a comment sharing just one word. Loss. Not as defeat, but as honesty. Because naming where you are is often the first step toward finding the way. There's a time of day when feeling lost becomes heavier. Not in the morning, not when distractions are loud, but at night, when everything slows down, when the world gets quiet, when there's nothing left to distract your thoughts. That's when questions return. What if I'm making a wrong choice? What if I wait too long? What if I already missed my moment? What if I'm praying but nothing changes? Psalm 143 was written for moments like this. Moments when the mind refuses to rest. When anxiety rises at night. It often doesn't come as fear. It comes as repetition. The same thoughts looping. The same worries replaying. The same uncertainty circling again and again. This is where many people feel lost, not because they lack faith, but because their mind won't slow down. This psalm becomes a refuge here. Let's return to one line again. Let the morning bring me word of your unfailing love. This is not impatience. It's trust in timing. The psalmist is not demanding answers immediately. He is trusting that light will come, even if it's not here yet. When you feel lost, night can make it feel permanent. This verse reminds you, darkness is not the conclusion. Here is how to use Psalm 143 practically when your mind won't rest. Don't read it fast. Don't analyze it. Don't try to understand everything. Instead, choose one sentence. Just one. Repeat it slowly with your breathing. For example, show me the way I should go. Inhale, pause, exhale, again. Show me the way I should go. This turns a psalm into a grounding prayer, not a performance, not a ritual, a moment of safety. When you repeat scripture this way, something changes. Your nervous system calms. Your thoughts lose urgency. Your fear stops shouting. You may not feel clarity immediately, but you will feel steadier. And steadiness comes before direction. Psalm 143 also teaches us something rarely said out loud. Feeling lost does not mean God is silent. Sometimes silence is where trust is formed. The psalmist didn't receive instant answers, but he received reassurance. And reassurance is often what we truly need. If you're listening to this and thinking, I've prayed before and I still feel lost, this psalm speaks to that frustration too. It doesn't promise instant change. It promises companionship, God walking with you even while the path is unclear. Teach me to do your will, for you are my God. This line is powerful because it removes pressure. You're not responsible for knowing everything. You're only responsible for staying open. Being lost doesn't disqualify you from guidance. It qualifies you for it. Now pause again. Notice your breathing. Notice the tension in your body. You don't have to solve your life tonight. You don't have to decide everything now. You only need the next small step. Psalm 143 is not about the whole journey. It's about today, this moment. If this psalm is helping you slow down, stay here a little longer. Let it repeat. Let it echo. And when you're ready, type one word in the comments. Here, as a quiet way of saying, I'm still listening. I haven't given up. I'm staying. One of the heaviest parts of feeling lost is the fear of choosing wrong. Not choosing at all can feel safer. Waiting can feel wiser. But waiting too long can quietly turn into fear. Psalm 143 understands this tension. It doesn't pressure you to move fast, but it doesn't leave you frozen either. It gently shifts the question. Not, what if I make the wrong decision? But, who am I trusting while I decide? Many people think faith means certainty, but biblical faith often begins in uncertainty. Abraham didn't know the destination. David didn't know the timeline. The psalmist didn't know the outcome. They only knew who they were following. That's the shift Psalm 143 invites you into. Show me the way I should go, for to you I entrust my life. This is not passive waiting. This is active surrender. Entrusting your life doesn't mean doing nothing. It means releasing the illusion of control. Sometimes feeling lost is not about lacking direction. It's about holding too tightly. Modern life makes this harder. We're trained to calculate, to optimize, to predict outcomes. But the soul doesn't heal through prediction. It heals through trust. This psalm doesn't say, show me the whole path. It says, show me the way, one step. If you're standing between two choices right now, this psalm speaks directly to you. If you're unsure whether to stay or leave, whether to speak or stay silent, whether to wait or act, Psalm 143 doesn't rush your answer. It grounds you first. Because grounded decisions are clearer decisions. Here's something rarely acknowledged. Fear of choosing wrong often hides fear of disappointing God. But this psalm removes that fear. It reminds you that God leads, even when your steps are small. You don't lose His guidance because you hesitate. You don't lose His presence because you're unsure. You're not being tested. You're being guided. May your good spirit lead me on level ground. Level ground means stability. It doesn't mean excitement. It doesn't mean instant success. It means peace beneath your feet. If your emotions feel uneven right now, this is what you ask for. Not clarity first. Stability first. Sometimes the sign you're being led is not sudden confidence, but reduced anxiety. The heart quiets. The urgency softens. The pressure eases. That's often how God confirms direction. If you're listening and thinking, I still don't know what to do, that's okay. Psalm 143 was never meant to rush you. It was meant to keep you connected while clarity unfolds. Stay with this psalm today. Read it again later. Return to one line. Let it steady you. And if this speaks to your situation, leave a simple comment. Trusting. Not because everything makes sense, but because you're choosing not to walk alone. Waiting can feel heavier than acting. When you're doing something, at least there's movement. At least there's a feeling of control. But waiting exposes everything. It exposes doubt. It exposes impatience. It exposes fear. This is where many people begin to feel loss again, not because nothing is happening, but because nothing is visible. Psalm 143 speaks directly into this space. The psalmist does not say, "Show me when." He says, "Show me the way." Waiting is not wasted time when it's anchored in trust. But waiting without meaning feels unbearable. This psalm gives meaning to the wait. "Answer me quickly, Lord, my spirit fails." This line is not a demand. It's vulnerability. It acknowledges something we rarely admit. Waiting is exhausting. Not physically, emotionally. If you ever felt tired of being patient, this psalm understands you. But notice something powerful. Even in exhaustion, the psalmist stays connected. He doesn't walk away. He doesn't grow bitter. He keeps speaking. That's the secret. Faith doesn't mean feeling strong while you wait. It means staying present while you feel weak. Modern culture glorifies speed. Quick answers, fast results, immediate clarity, but the soul heals slowly. And sometimes feeling lost is part of the healing process, not a failure, a transition. There are seasons when God removes noise, before He reveals direction, when He quiets distractions, before He speaks clearly. Waiting can feel like silence, but silence often prepares a heart. Psalm 143 helps you remain steady here. If you're waiting right now, ask yourself gently, am I waiting with resentment or with openness? Am I waiting with fear or with trust? Am I filling the silence or listening within it? There are no wrong answers. This psalm is not here to judge you. It's here to support you. For to you I entrust my life. This line transforms waiting. Waiting becomes active surrender. You may not see progress, but something is happening beneath the surface. Clarity forms quietly. Strength rebuilds silently. Here's an important truth Psalm 143 teaches. God often works deeper than we expect. Direction unfolds gradually. Peace comes before movement. If you don't feel rushed anymore, that may be the sign you're being led. If this psalm is helping you breathe a little easier, stay connected. Let it become familiar. Let it return when anxiety rises. And if waiting is your struggle right now, type one word in the comments. Waiting. Not as frustration, but as faith. Because staying present in the waiting is a form of one of the quiet fears that grows during waiting is the fear of being left behind. You see others moving forward, making decisions, starting new chapters, and you wonder if something is wrong with you. This is where comparison enters. Not loudly, not aggressively, but slowly, quietly, like a weight you didn't notice at first. Psalm 143 speaks to this without ever naming it. The psalmist does not compare his journey to anyone else's. He doesn't measure his progress. He doesn't look sideways. He looks upward. That shift changes everything. When you feel lost, comparison makes it worse. It convinces you that clarity should already be here. That answer should have arrived by now. That everyone else understands something you don't. But Scripture never measures faith by speed. It measures faith by trust. Do not hide your face from me. This line reveals something important. The psalmist isn't afraid of being slow. He's afraid of being alone. And that fear is human. Most of us can endure uncertainty, as long as we feel accompanied. Feeling lost becomes unbearable when it feels isolating. Psalm 143 reassures you. You are not unseen. Modern life rewards visibility, achievements, announcements, milestones. But spiritual growth is often invisible, quiet, internal, slow. Just because nothing looks different doesn't mean nothing is changing. If you're feeling stuck while others move ahead, this psalm speaks directly to you. It reminds you that your pace is not a mistake. Your timing is not delayed. You are not behind. You are being shaped. Let the morning bring me word of your unfailing love. This line gently redirects attention, not to what others are doing, not to what you lack, but to what remains constant. God's love does not fluctuate with your progress. It does not pause while you wait. It stays. Comparison steals peace by convincing you that you're late. Psalm 143 restores peace by reminding you that God is present. Presence matters more than progress. Here's a grounding truth to hold on to. You don't need to match someone else's timeline. You don't need to justify your pace. You don't need visible progress to be moving spiritually. Sometimes growth looks like stillness. If this speaks to your heart, pause here. Breathe. You're not falling behind. You're being held. And if comparison has been heavy lately, leave one word in the comments. Staying, as a quiet declaration. I'm staying with God, even when the path is slow. When certainty disappears, something deeper is tested. Not your beliefs, not your discipline, but your trust. Psalm 143 slowly moves the focus inward, not toward answers, but toward anchoring. The psalmist does something powerful here. He stops asking for outcomes and starts asking for alignment. This is subtle but transformative. Teach me to do your will, for you are my God. Notice what's missing. He doesn't ask for success. He doesn't ask for relief. He doesn't ask for explanation. He asks to be taught. This shifts identity from someone who must know to someone who is being guided. When you feel lost, identity often feels shaky. You start questioning yourself, your choices, your instincts. Psalm 143 doesn't rebuild confidence by boosting ego. It rebuilds confidence by restoring relationship. You are my God. That statement grounds everything. Modern culture tells us confidence comes from control, from certainty, from having a plan. But biblical confidence comes from belonging. Knowing who leads you matters more than knowing where you're going. May your good spirit lead me on level ground. This is trust without pressure. Level ground doesn't promise speed. It promises safety. If your heart has felt fragile lately, this is a prayer you repeat. There's a quiet transformation that happens when you stop demanding clarity and start leaning into guidance. The anxiety softens, the tension loosens, the fear loses authority, not because circumstances changed, but because your inner posture did. Psalm 143 builds trust slowly, line by line, breath by breath. It's meant to be lived with, not rushed through. If you're rebuilding trust right now, not in God, but in yourself, this psalm understands you. It doesn't shame doubt. It redirects it from self-reliance to spiritual reliance. Here's a truth worth repeating. Trust is not the absence of fear. Trust is choosing to lean while fear exists. That's what this psalm teaches. If this resonates, stay here a moment. Let the word settle. And if rebuilding trust is where you are, type one word below: learning. As a quiet acknowledgement, I'm still being guided even now. There's a kind of fear that rarely gets named. The fear of not being enough for God, not praying enough, not trusting enough, not believing strongly enough. This fear grows quietly when you feel lost for too long. Psalm 143 addresses this without accusation. Do not bring your servant into judgment, for no one living is righteous before you. This line releases pressure. It acknowledges limitation. The psalmist is not defending himself. He's not justifying his weakness. He's resting in grace. Many people confuse spiritual discipline with spiritual worth. They believe that if they feel lost, they must have failed. But Psalm 143 corrects this belief. Feeling lost does not mean you're doing something wrong. It often means you're human. Spiritual exhaustion doesn't come from lack of faith. It often comes from trying to carry too much alone, trying to be strong all the time, trying to understand everything, trying to never doubt. This psalm invites you to stop performing. Notice the tone. There is no panic, no shame, no self-condemnation, just honesty. And honesty is where grace enters. When guilt weighs on you, it clouds direction. You don't move forward because you don't feel worthy to be led. Psalm 143 breaks this cycle. It reminds you that guidance is not earned. It's given. For I hide myself in you. Hiding is not failure here. It's trust. It's saying, I don't have to hold myself together right now. If you've been carrying guilt for not being consistent, for doubting, for feeling lost longer than you expected, this psalm speaks directly to you. It doesn't correct you. It comforts you. Here is a truth this psalm gently restores. God's guidance is not conditional on your strength. Grace meets you before clarity arrives. Rest is part of the process. You are not behind spiritually. You are not failing God. You are being held. If this brings relief, pause here. Let the weight lift. And if guilt has been heavy lately, leave one word in the comments: resting. Not because everything is resolved, but because you're choosing grace over pressure. Hope does not always return loudly. Sometimes it doesn't arrive as confidence, or excitement, or certainty. Sometimes hope returns quietly, almost unnoticed. Psalm 143 understands this. After honesty, after surrender, after rest, something shifts, not outside, inside. The psalmist does not suddenly see the whole path, but he feels less alone on it. Let the morning bring me word of your unfailing love. Morning here is not just time, it's perspective. It's a moment when darkness no longer defines everything. Hope doesn't erase night. It reminds you that night ends. When you feel lost, the future often feels threatening. Too many unknowns, too many possibilities, too many fears. This psalm doesn't force you to look far ahead. It gently pulls your attention to today. Just this morning, just this step. There's peace in narrowing focus. You don't need to solve your whole life. You don't need a 5-year plan. You don't need to understand everything God is doing. You only need enough light for the next moment. Psalm 143 restores hope by restoring trust in God's character, not in circumstances. Unfailing love does not depend on outcomes. It doesn't disappear when you're unsure. It doesn't retreat when you feel lost. It remains. Hope grows when pressure leaves, when guilt softens, when comparison fades, when waiting becomes trust. That's the journey this psalm leads you through. If you've been afraid to think about the future, this psalm does not judge that fear. It meets it gently. It says, you don't have to look that far ahead yet. Here's a quiet truth Psalm 143 reveals. Hope doesn't require clarity. It requires presence. And presence is available now. If this psalm is helping you breathe differently, notice that shift matters. That's how hope begins. Stay with this moment. And if hope feels fragile but real, leave one word in the comments. Still, as a quiet confession, I'm still here. I'm still trusting. I'm still open. There's a reason Psalm 143 stays with people. It's not because it gives quick answers. It's because it becomes a place you return to. When confusion comes back, when fear rises again, when direction feels distant. This psalm doesn't expire. Some prayers are spoken once. Others become shelters. Psalm 143 is a shelter. You don't outgrow it. You revisit it. Here's how this psalm becomes part of your daily life. When you feel lost, you don't need to read the whole thing every time. You choose an anchor, one sentence, one breath, one moment. For example, in the morning when anxiety appears, let the morning bring me word of your unfailing love. Say it slowly. Let it frame your day when decisions feel heavy. Show me the way I should go. Not demanding clarity, inviting guidance. When guilt or pressure returns, do not bring your servant into judgment. Let that sentence dissolve the weight. When waiting feels endless, for to you I entrust my life. This turns waiting into trust again. Psalm 143 works because it meets you where you are. It doesn't require emotional energy. It doesn't require spiritual strength. It meets you tired. It meets you unsure. It meets you lost. Over time, something subtle happens. You stop panicking as quickly. You stop rushing decisions. You stop believing every anxious thought. Not because life became easy, but because you became anchored. This is why this psalm is for the moment you feel lost. Not just once, but repeatedly, whenever you need to return. If you've stayed with this video this long, that already says something. You're not numb. You're not disconnected. You're searching quietly. And God honors that posture. Stay here for one more moment. Let silence do its work. You don't have to leave this psalm behind. When the video ends, carry it with you. And if this psalm feels like something you'll return to, type one word in the comments. Returning. As a quiet commitment. I know where to come back. When I feel lost again, there's something comforting about knowing you don't have to figure everything out tonight. Psalm 143 gently leads you to that place, a place where striving stops, where pressure fades, where the soul can rest without answers. By now, notice what has changed. Not the situation, not the circumstances, but your breathing, your posture, your inner noise. That shift matters. That's where peace begins. This psalm does not promise that tomorrow will be easy. It promises that you will not face tomorrow alone. And that promise is enough. For I hide myself in you. This line becomes a refuge. It means you are allowed to pause, allowed to lean, allowed to stop holding everything together. You don't need to be brave right now. You only need to be present. When life feels unclear, belonging matters more than direction. Psalm 143 restores belonging. You are not wandering alone. You are not forgotten. You are not overlooked. You are seen, even in uncertainty. Let this settle. You don't have to rush into the next season. You don't have to force peace. Peace arrives when resistance leaves. If your heart feels calmer now, even slightly, that is not accidental. This psalm has done what it always does. It steadies before it leads. Stay here for a few more breaths. Inhale slowly. Exhale gently. Nothing else is required of you in this moment. If you're listening and feeling safer than when you started, that's the quiet work of trust. And trust grows in stillness. When you're ready, we'll close this psalm together, not with answers, but with assurance. Before we end, stay here for one last moment. Nothing needs to be said. Nothing needs to be solved. Just presence. You came to this psalm feeling lost, not broken, not abandoned, just unsure. And now, even if the path is still unclear, you are steadier. That matters. Psalm 143 never promised answers. It offered something deeper: companionship, shelter, direction that unfolds gently if confusion returns. And it will remember this place. Remember these words. Show me the way I should go. For to you I entrust my life. Let them become familiar. Let them become home. You don't have to carry certainty. You don't have to carry the future. You are allowed to rest and trust. Even here, especially here, as this video comes to a close, carry this with you. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are not lost beyond grace. You are being guided one quiet step at a time. If this psalm brought you peace, consider staying connected. You can return to it whenever you need. And if you feel comfortable, leave a comment with one final word: found. Not because everything is clear, but because you found a place to breathe again. May peace stay with you today. May direction come gently. And may you remember, this psalm is for the moment you feel lost, and for every moment you return.